Okay, so you're going to see an application like this in your homework. The equation S equals 4.9 t squared plus that v with the subscript 0 is called v naught. It's not N-O-T, it's not N-A-U-G-H-T or something like that. So 4.9 t squared plus v naught t gives the distance S, S stands for distance, an object with initial velocity v naught falls in t seconds. T stands for time. The height of a building is 566 meters. How long would it take an object to hit the ground if it were thrown straight down from the top of the building with an initial velocity of 5 meters per second? So you're given this. You're allowed to use this equation. Good news. You don't have to figure this out yourself. When you get to calculus, you can derive this equation. But we do need to fill it in. What's the part that's missing? So 4.9 t squared, S equals 4.9 t squared. What's v naught in this case, do you think? You got to read all the way to the last words of the last sentence. It's 5, yeah, so v naught's 5. So it's thrown straight down. So if it were thrown like at an arc, on an arc off the building, this equation wouldn't work. You got to throw it straight down, and then the equation's a good approximation. And it tells you that it's thrown straight down 5 meters per second. So that's v naught. That's v naught. So we're going to fill in that right here. So S equals 4.9 t squared plus 5t. So this thing's traveling straight down. So going down is like the positive direction here, but you don't need to think about that too much, but that's what it would be if you were going to coordinatize it. So what is the distance if it's going all the way down the building from the top? What is S? That's 566. Does that, okay, now let's say I hadn't said anything. You probably realize you have to plug this in somewhere, either for S or for T, right? And what's a dead giveaway that it's not T? It's 566 what? Meters. Do we measure T in meters? No. Guys, that is the good thing about applications. You can use your common sense, even if you don't really understand it, you can use your common sense to figure out where to plug things in. So the idea then, and we want to solve for time because it says how long does it take, right? So it makes sense we want to solve for time. So you're going to want to plug in the 566 for the distance measurement, which is S. And then the idea is you solve for this and you get the time it takes for the object to hit the ground, because the ground is 566 feet below you. Okay, so what do we do? What kind of equation is that? Quadratic, what a surprise, right? Okay, what do we have to do to solve an equation like that? Don't yawn, you're going to make me yawn. Come on, man. I'm going to leave that in the video. So we're going to subtract 566 from both sides. And we'll have 0 on that side equals 4.9 t squared plus 5t minus 566. Like that. Is it going to be practical necessarily to solve that by factoring? No, but what do we have now in our hip pockets? Quadratic formula, right? So we're going to go right to that. And I guess we'll have to, if we get a decimal or a square root answer, we'll have to estimate using a decimal, estimate our calculators. We'll round, the book says to round one place past the decimal. So that's what we'll do, if necessary, right? And I think it will be necessary here. So let's plug in the quadratic formula. Write it down every time you use it. T equals opposite of b plus or minus b squared square root of b squared minus 4ac all over big division bar 2a. Okay, I want you guys to just in your heads identify a, b, and c and then tell me how to plug them in. What do we get? Is it 5 or negative 5? Negative 5, right? Because b is 5, right? So opposite of b, negative 5. Okay, plus or minus what? Square root of 5 squared. Can we just put in 25 right away? Would that offend anybody? No? Okay. Minus 4 times what times what? 4.9 times, yeah, it's important to throw in that negative, right? 566. And then all over 2a. 2 times 4.9, I happen to know, is 9.8. Why don't we just run that through our calculators right now? It's not going to come out to be a nice number. So let's break it out right now. Let's not mess around with this thing. Students are reluctant to do this at first, but I recommend plugging it all in. Now, if you want to simplify the radicand, you can. You could go 25 minus 4 times 4.9 times negative 566. Make sure you use the negative button, not the minus button. And double check it. Make sure I plugged it in right. I think I did. Hit enter. And notice, not a nice number to take the square root of. So if you want to do that first separately, I understand. We'll do that. But then just type the rest of it all in at once. So what does that mean? Well, that means that it'd be nice to see. In fact, I'll say I require that you show me this. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root of that number we just got. What was that? How many ones are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then an 8. So that's like 11,118.6. Okay. And then all over the 9.8. So that'd be nice to see on your paper. And then just plug it all in at once in your calculator if you can get used to that. So I would do this. On the calculator, type in parenthesis, negative 5. Let's do the minus root first, and we might have to throw that one out. Minus square root of, in fact, if you're smart, you wouldn't even do this one, but I guess I'm not very smart. Right? And then exit out of that, hit the arrow out of that square root, and then divided by 9.8. Why did I say that? Why did I say that I don't even need to compute this? It's going to be negative, isn't it? Are we looking for a negative time here? How do I know it's going to be negative? Well, there's a negative 5, and I'm subtracting a square root, which is, you subtract a positive number, it's going to become even further negative, right? So the numerator is negative, divided by a positive, it's got to be a negative number. So a negative 11.2 seconds, right? Yeah, no, the object hadn't dropped yet negative 11 seconds before you started, right? So that doesn't make a lot of sense to actually do that, to compute that. So if you wanted to leave that one out right away and say, yeah, that's negative, forget about it, that would be perfectly acceptable. I don't need to see that result. But then, okay, I wanted to show you this anyway. Hit second function, enter. You get what you just punched in. You can edit it and change it. Use your arrow key. Go over to that minus and change it to what? Plus. And then you get about 10.2 seconds if you round. And put down the units, 10.2 seconds. So about 10.2 seconds for that thing to hit the ground.